We're just following the Ohio River. It's absolutely beautiful. The scenery, incredible. But we're just following the river, working our way up.
I can't believe the river goes through so many states.
Oh, I know, and it's beautiful all the way along the way.
Really?
Welcome to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. Welcome to a new episode of Sam's Garage. Sam and Doug get their instructions for the next segment of the Great Race. Next, Sam installs the Edelbrock electronic fuel system in the Chevy Bel Air. Then Sam gets to work on the 2JZ engine that's going in the Lexus SC Coupe. And finally, Sam moves on to the rear differential of the Pontiac Catalina. Rain or shine, Sam and Doug get prepared to start the next leg of the Great Race, leaving Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and heading to Marietta, Ohio.
We got to make sure the wipers are working good. We're looking out because it's going to, our vision's going to be a little impaired, but we'll make it all work. Yesterday was a good day. Today we're expecting a better day. We're going to get our instructions 30 minutes before we get in the car. I'll annotate everything so I know exactly what we have to do. And then we've got to hit the time on our mark.
And the one thing we don't have to worry about racing in this rain is that our speeds are going to be so low, there's going to be no sliding. And we got new tires.
We got new tires. We're in great shape. Looking forward to today.
So what we got here is basically the start. This is the start line, and you can only wait till 30 minutes before your start line, and we all have to wait 1 minute before each person goes. So for instance, our number is 61 today. Start time is at 9 o'clock. You add 61 minutes to 9 o'clock, it makes our start time 10:01. So that's what everybody here is doing, is they're waiting for their start time, and then wait 30 minutes before, get their instructions, go through it like the navigator needs to do. They need to make a bunch of notes so that we're ready to go on the road.
And then each one of us calibrate a watch, so we need to make sure we're down to the second, because everything here is done in seconds. You can win or lose a race by seconds.
And to think that there's a lot of these people, even novice people, getting aces, and an ace is exactly making a perfect time from one leg to another. Perfect on the money second. That is very cool.
We've gotten within 1 second, but we haven't hit an ace.
Not bad for a bunch of novice. This was their parents' car. It was his mother's car, daily driver. Their brothers, he took it, bought it from his parents when he was 16. This was his first car, and he was driving it every day, and now he's turned it into the rally race car. You know, starting in Owensboro, Kentucky, going through, coming into Lawrenceburg, Indiana, Ohio.
Yep.
Lancaster and Marietta.
Yeah, we're just following the Ohio River. It's absolutely beautiful. The scenery, incredible. But we're just following the river, working our way up. The weather was difficult, the rain.
Torrential downpour.
Yes.
Luckily, we're in a nice enclosed vehicle that does not leak anything, so we're nice and dry. I gotta tell you, we stopped in Lancaster, and the welcoming people there. That city completely welcomed us. It was huge. We had lunch with everybody. Everybody loved the cars. And then we did our second part of the legs,
Second part of the legs,
And it went well.
Yeah, the second part went really well. The morning, it just was a difficult start. But after that, we recouped after lunch. Our times looked good after lunch. We learned a lot today.
We go through the most beautiful parts of this country on the most beautiful back roads. It's slow speed, but that way you get the time to take in the surroundings around you.
Yeah, you really do, yeah. Tomorrow's a better day for us. Hopefully everything will start out and run reasonable through the day. We had a good 2 days Today was a tougher day, but you know what? That's racing.
That is racing. As we go on, we'll get better and better, and tomorrow we're gonna put ourselves in a little bubble and ignore everything around us and only concentrate on what we have to do to win. Doug and I are absolutely loving the great race. The technical portion of it really makes it exciting. No matter how cool you may think you are in racing, this one is going to give you the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it really will. Both of us are seasoned racers, but what we're finding out here is everything is done with precision, speed, and time. It's not like we're trying to slide around the turns or outslide somebody or take them down the straightaway. This is all precision.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. With the LS engine now in the 55 Bel Air, Sam gets started on the Edelbrock EFI system, which includes everything needed to get the job done.
That engine looks pretty good in this 55 Bel Air. Today we're going to be dressing it with an Edelbrock EFI system, which comes with an entire intake manifold, very minimal wire harness. First thing I have to do is put the battery tray in. It fits and clears the cold pack by 1/4 of an inch. I got lucky, and so did Victor. Let's get started. So what we got here is an Edelbrock complete EFI system for an LS engine. What's cool about this system, it's a little more diverse than most. Let's say you're running a 24X 6-liter with rectangular port LS3 heads. You can use this EFI system, just like you see it, and all you'd have to use is a 24X ignition harness for the EFI. If you're running a 58 tooth, it comes with the kit. This kit is fully tunable, user-friendly. All you gotta do is ask a few questions. It's Edelbrock, so you know you got peace of mind with longevity and reliability. It comes with everything you need as far as the harnesses go, the ignition harness, the power harness, the EFI. It comes with a wideband O2 sensor. It even comes with the sensors you're gonna need for the EFI system to work properly. We all know that the LS engine has a GM ECT, electronic coolant temperature sensor, but they give you one just in case there's a difference in the signal. So this is gonna be a very nice system. It's compact, looks old school, comes with an air cleaner as well, and it's gonna work really nice on our 55 Bel Air. Let's get it installed. So as far as incorporating the EFI from Edelbrock onto the 55 Bel Air, this is going to be very simple. That is the oil setting unit that's going to live right here. The ECT sensor is going to go on the passenger side head. And then what we have over there with the purple wire, the yellow wire, and the pink wire is the power that goes to the starter. The yellow wire is going to be the powering up the room, and then the purple wire is going to be the ignition start for the starter solenoid. All I got to do is run those items to my starter where they were before, run the alternator where it was before, hook up my RPM ECT and my oil pressure sensor so that the dash works and everything should work fine. In my case, I put the air temp sensor connector underneath the intake manifold. I don't use it because I go in and I turn off the modifiers for both the ECT and the air temp because I don't want timing being reduced for no reason. Now right here what we have is ignition source coming from the room through the painless harness, and it's going to be powering up through the condenser going into the distributor to drop it down from 12 volts to, let's say, 7 or 8 volts. So we're not going to use this at all. We're going to make sure that this has 12 volts under cranking, and as long as it does, I can use that as my power source for the Edelbrock, as long as it's a clean, aftermarket pink ignition wire. The old ignition wires from GM sometimes had resistors within them, so you don't want to use them. But this is an aftermarket pink ignition wire. It's good. It should be a nice clean source. So that's pretty much it as far as it goes under here. All right, so the fuel injection is fully installed except for the fuel pump. That's going to be next. The power wire to the starter and everything for the room is back onto the starter. I've got the EFI done as well as the ECT sensor and all the cold packs. I have sub harnesses for an LS3 that's going to work with the EFI for the fuel injection. So that's all been taken care of. The next thing I have to do is hook up my headers. But first I got to remove this steering box because we've decided that the steering box conversion is not going to work in this setup. So we went with a Flaming River complete rack and pinion system. It's on its way. So I'm going to remove that, install my header so I can fire this thing up after I hook up the fuel system. When you come back next week, we're going to be installing the Summit Racing fuel system, new fuel tank all the way from the back to the front, and then the accessories, and then we'll be ready to fire it up. One of the biggest problems I've seen being a mechanic in the last 28 years is rodents. They get everywhere in your vehicle, RV, boat. They find a little nook and cranny. They make a huge mess, and they cost you a lot of issues in the future.
Yeah, agricultural as well.
Absolutely.
It is a real problem when you get into like a combine or something, or anything that's sitting around for a long time, an RV, a boat. We've even went as far as had this independently tested with a laboratory. They set up the test various different ways, and we know that the effectiveness is based on three things. It is touch, it is fear, and it is scent. We put a predatory synthetic scent in there, so they believe that there is a predator in the area. So we're playing it off of all three of their fears, and it's become very effective. I mean, we were the most effective in the category with the testing.
That's absolutely awesome, because let me tell you, there's nothing more of a problem than a rodent, especially like in boats. The bellows in the back, they go chew through the billows. Now they got a clear path inside the bilge, make themselves a home for 6 months. So if you guys want to keep the rodents out of your equipment, even the AC at home, you want to check out NHOU's Mouse Out.
Welcome back to more Sam's Garage, presented by NHOU. Sam starts prepping the 2JZ engine for its new home in the Lexus SC Coupe by completing a few critical maintenance items and installing the intake and exhaust manifolds.
This week, what I'm going to be doing to the 2JZ is I have to replace a lot of parts like the time belt, the water pump, to get this thing ready to go into the SC. I have no valve cover gaskets. I got to put on my intake manifolds and my exhaust manifolds. Now this particular timing belt, there's nothing wrong with it. It is brand new, but it's 20 years old. And when it comes to timing belts, you change them by age or mileage. And in this case, age comes first. This thing had a Lexus water pump on it. Actually, it was the backside of a Lexus water pump. It is different than the Super water pump, so I went ahead and got a complete assembly that we had in the car. Went ahead and put the water pump in. I put a new timing belt on that gives me a little bit of peace of mind. And now I'm going to put my valve covers back on. I went to Miller powder coating, had my traditional Sam wrinkle red done. They do an awesome job. Anytime you guys are putting on a valve cover gasket, always make sure to put a little bit of RTV in the corners wherever there's a half circle. If you guys are having anything powder coated on your engine, the first thing they do is sandblast all the components. So something like this, where it's got baffling, sand will get trapped back there. And it's very important that you guys clean it. Even if your powder coater does it for you, which Miller's does, go home, check it, blow it with air, and clean it yourself as well. Now we got the exhaust manifold going on. I've got brand new gaskets. And when it comes to exhaust, or in this case, a turbocharger setup, I always use stage 8 bolts because it keeps them from backing out. These things go through a lot of heat cycles, extreme temperatures, and so they'll just push these bolts out all day long. And then you notice how thick that gasket is. It's very forgiving, but eventually when it gets exposed to too much combustion, it's gonna blow out. Give yourself some peace of mind. One thing I love about the stage 8 bolts is that they give you the center Allen, and for a situation like this, those two bolts can be a bear, but with this tool, a ballpoint Allen, just put it in there, and it makes life so easy. You can get proper torque on it, then you put your retainers on there, and they'll never come off. Now the turbocharger I'm running is a Summit Racing billet wheel cooled housing, 67 millimeter. This is gonna make at least 600 to 650 crank horsepower, close to 500 wheel horsepower. And for the road course, this is something that you want because you want your housings to be small so you have less lag. When you want to make a bunch of horsepower, you got to make everything bigger. When you make everything bigger, your RPM band moves up. Now it's more of a full throttle car. Just like when you put too big of a carburetor on your engine. Has poor drivability, no partial throttle, but when you get down full throttle, that's when it wakes up. Same thing with the turbo setup. When you guys are setting this up, you want to make sure whether you're running a street car or a race car. Now, a lot of us think that we have race cars on the street, and that's not cool. You want to use the correct setup for the street so that you can be fast on the street, and you want to use a different setup for the track so that you can be fast on the track. You guys can run the stock intake manifold. I did it my first year racing, made all the power, won the championship. This is the aftermarket manifold we use later seasons. It's good for high RPM, high horsepower. It flows a lot of air. There'll be times where you may have to open up the holes just to make everything work correctly due to where it's made. but that's not a problem. You'll save yourself a bunch of money, make a bunch of horsepower, and it looks really good in the engine bay. You also can use your TPS sensor from the factory intake manifold. This engine is about ready to go into the Lexus next week. We'll go ahead and put on everything that we need to on the engine as far as the motor mount brackets, the motor mounts, the tensioner. I'll go ahead and get me an oil cap and install it in the Lexus SC.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NHOU. Sam inspects the rear differential on the Pontiac Catalina, only to find a surprise and confirmation on just how special this car really is.
All right, so last week we installed the EFI Pro Flow from Edelbrock, and anytime you do a camshaft upgrade, it's a good idea to do what?
We're going to change the gears.
Yeah.
We're going to upgrade them.
Absolutely. That way the rear end gear is going to allow that camshaft to do its job depending on the RPM band that you got. This thing's got a really tall old school gear in it. We went to Summit Racing, we got ourselves a set of Motive gears, 373s, along with a torsion style limited slip differential. So upon removing the cover, we just noticed that this Catalina has a very rare rear end in it. But when I look at this and I look at the size of that, I'm thinking, well, something's wrong. So then I counted the ring gears bolts, and there's 12 of them. So this is called a Big 10 rear end, very rare. It looks like I have a 342 rear end gear on this one, but it's so rare I want to kind of keep it to the car because the car is rare. It's a fastback Catalina. I've never seen one. But one thing out in the aftermarket world is a lot of people are afraid of rear end gears. To keep them quiet, all you gotta do is check your clearances and tolerances. So that's 10 thousandths clearance for the ring gear itself. Now, if you guys were doing a service on the rear end and you're just changing out the pinion, most times you want 16 to 18 inches of drag. You're gonna use that with an inch-pound torque wrench. So you step it up from 1/4 to 3/8 to 1/2 inch, you put your socket on there, you turn the tool until it turns, and you'll see the drag right here on that dial. So when you're putting your new ringing pinion in, and you're doing the bearings, and you're putting the new crush washer in, you're gonna tighten it until you feel drag. So we're gonna put it all back together again, we're gonna put our dial indicator back on, we're gonna tighten everything, we're gonna make sure there's a good preload on the side bearings for the differential itself. Then you got your clearance good, you got your drag good, the ring and pinion looks good. You go ahead and get your paint pen and you do about 4 or 5 teeth on the ring gear. You put a good coating on there. Then you want to grab the pinion, give it resistance, spin the ring itself so that you have good contact, and that pinion is going to penetrate the ring gear and give you that pattern. And then the next important thing is you want to protect that investment, and that's when we come to fluids and what fluids you're going to use and the braking period. So when it comes to the differential fluid, it's very important that you guys take in all the factors. For instance, the weather. Whether you're up north or down south, that does matter onto what viscosity you're going to use. Like here in the north, you're going to use 75/90. It's thin. But in the south, you could go up to 140, 130. Because it's warm climate here. So therefore, there's not going to be a lot of drag resistance due to the fluid getting hard in the cold weather. Now, it's also important that you guys make sure what differential you have. And if you don't use the correct fluid or additive, you're going to get chatter. So a good limited slip additive when you're doing a clutch pack service is very important. The cool thing about the AMSOIL gear fluid is that no matter where you are in the car, because this got a soft pouch, take the top off, pour it in there, and it doesn't make a mess. Like, you all know what I'm talking about. Well, we got the rear end put back together. Not the way we wanted it, but it's pretty cool finding out how rare this one is.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be the last of the surprises with this Pontiac for you.
Absolutely. Good thing we have Tori DeBlasi. He did write an article on how you guys can properly break in your ring and gear. It's very important because if you guys are investing money in the rear end, you want to make sure to get that initial metal out that is in the braking process. All right, so as soon as we get our new tires from Tire Distributors of Georgia, Julie and I can go for a ride and see how that Edelbrock feels.
I can't wait.
Be sure to check out Sam's Garage on these other media platforms. Send us questions and feedback to info@samsgaragetv.com. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Sam's Garage. Sam and Doug continue to make progress on the great race. The Bel Air now has the fuel system installed. Sam started assembly of the 2JZ engine, and the Catalina Fastback is full of surprises.